Hello there and welcome. This is Help Me, I Am Tired, a place for honest conversations about mental health, healing, and finding ways to feel a little bit better. My name is Kanu. I'm a mental health clinician and your host. Before we get started though, I want to do a quick check-in. How are you really feeling today? Whatever is going on inside your mind and heart, you are in a safe space here. Let's get into today's episode. Today's internal weather report. For some, there's sunshine and ease. Connection comes naturally, laughter flows freely, and boundaries are respected. But for others, though, the skies are partly cloudy with a high chance of guilt. There's a light drizzle of self-doubt in the morning, followed by a strong pressure system of overthinking in the afternoon. And tonight, expect some scattered resentment with a heavy fog of I should have said no. So if you're tired of living under the emotional weather of people pleasing, you are not alone. I have been there. Maybe you're sitting there smiling. Maybe you're nodding. Maybe you're saying, sure, I can do that. And deep down, you are tired. Not just physically, emotionally, but I'm talking soul level tired. And you're living in the sunshine of other people's comfort while you stand in the shadow of your own neglect. And if that's you, my friend, today's episode is for you. Let me start by telling you a story. So some time ago, don't remember how many years ago, I had what I now call a panic attack. What I now realize was a panic attack. So it came out of nowhere. But now that I understand I'm a mental health clinician, I'm sure it was building for years. So I'll share more about that in another episode. But that moment became a turning point for me. I went on a mission to figure out what was going on the inside of me. So out of that journey, I created something I now call my Blindspot Blueprint. It helped me understand the things I was doing on autopilot, the things I didn't realize were costing me so much energy. And guess what showed up on that blueprint? People pleasing. I'm like, what? At first, that didn't even make sense. People pleasing? That's not me. I thought I was the dependable one. I'm the good friend. I'm the one who shows up. I am the yes person, the one everyone can count on. But then the very same people I was stretching myself for began to tell me, you don't have to do all that. And sometimes I would say, you never say no. And I thought it was a compliment. But that's when I started to wonder, was my helpfulness a gift or was it a mask? So as a therapist, I now understand that people pleasing isn't just about being nice. It's often a learned way of surviving. Somewhere along the way, many of us picked up the idea that being liked equals being safe. And most of us learned this during our formative years. So maybe you were raised in a home where conflict wasn't safe. Maybe your emotional needs were not met unless you were doing something useful or something impressive. Or maybe you were praised only when you kept the peace. You didn't cause any trouble. And so you learned to say yes. You learned not to rock the boat. You learned not to put yourself second and to keep people happy, even if it's at your own expense. So if that's you, this isn't weakness. It's a form of emotional overfunctioning. You're working overtime on the inside so that everything around you feels steady. But here's the cost though. You lose your voice, you lose your boundaries, and often you lose a sense of yourself. Now, let's talk about this from a Christian lens, because that's how I was raised. Because let's be honest, this is where it can get confusing. So as Christians, we are taught to serve. We are taught to love others, to, turn the other cheek. But nowhere in the word does God say, exhaust yourself for the approval of men. I mean, Jesus was serving out of love, not fear. He took time to rest And he said no sometimes. So he honored God's word first, not every demand placed on him by people. So the question is, are you serving from a full place of love or from a worn out place of fear? Now, here's what I have learned on this journey and what I now walk my clients through. So the first thing is you got to ask yourself, is this a loving yes or is this a fearful yes? And you have to also name your needs. You're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to take up space and also learn to tolerate the discomfort. Disappointing someone doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a human being with limits. And you have to practice saying no, especially in those small ways. Build your tolerance and rehearse if you need to and get support. This kind of growth is tender and it takes time. Sometimes therapy is what you can go to get the support that you need. Now, if you're the person who's supporting someone who's a people pleaser, don't take their yes at face value. Now, this sounds weird, but you can gently ask them, are you sure you want to do that? Especially when you can see that, hey, this person is like spread thin, right? And you can also remind them like, hey, it's okay to say no, And secondly is you can acknowledge their effort, but don't reinforce the overgiving. So you can say something like, I love how thoughtful you are, but you don't have to go above and beyond every time to be loved. And then when they do say no, respect their boundaries and do not guilt trip them, but instead celebrate. Thank you for taking care of yourself. I really admire that. That's a nice little compliment to the person who is struggling to say no. So if you're listening to this and thinking, that's me, I want to say something to you right now. You are not selfish for wanting rest, and you are not cold for setting boundaries, because a lot of people say when you set boundaries, you're being cold. No, you're not. So you are not hard to love when you speak your truth. And sometimes your truth is no, maybe not right now. And you're probably just tired and it's time for you to come home to yourself. I know how hard it is. I've been there. And that's why I'm here to walk this with you, one no at a time, one deep breath at a time, and one bold choice at a time. So let this be your moment to stop overgiving and start gently receiving. I am so proud of you for even listening today. So we'll talk again very soon. Love always. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Help Me, I Am Tired, the Inner Weather Report. I hope it brought you a little light or even just a moment of relief in your mental weather. If you know someone caught in their own storm, someone who's tired of the constant pressure and noise, send this episode their way. You might just be the sunshine they needed today. And remember, progress isn't always a bright, sunny day. Sometimes it's just making it through the rain. Be gentle with yourself. Love always, and keep thriving within.